If you've ever strained a muscle, you know how painful that strain can be. Might happen in your arm or your leg, but nevertheless, something occurred in which your muscle was used in the wrong way or pulled against itself or injured by something you were doing. As a result, that pain sets in and you find yourself unable to use your arm or your leg without pain. It may affect your walk if it's in your leg. And not until you give it time to heal will the muscle strain begin to ease up and you'll be able to return to how it was before the injury occurred. Well, strains also happen in our relationships with one another. It would only be natural that in any kind of relationship, when an injury occurs because of something said or not said or done or not done, that the relationship gets pulled apart, it becomes strained. And it occurs in all kinds of relationships. In the family, husbands and wives know what it's like at times to have a strained relationship. Parents with their children and children with their parents, and then you can expand to the whole family. Friendships sometimes become strained, even among our closest friends. You can find strained relationships in workplaces with your co-workers and even in churches among brothers and sisters of Christ. And those strained relationships occur over and over again. It's interesting that when you read the Bible, there are so many stories about strained relationships. In fact, from the very beginning in the book of Genesis, after the first couple were placed in the garden, Adam and Eve disobeyed God and took from the tree they had been forbidden to eat from. And when they were confronted about it, they began to point fingers at one another. The relationship broke down. It became strained and injured because of their choices. Well, as the story unfolds, we know the strain continues. Adam and Eve gave birth to Cain and Abel. Cain became jealous of his brother Abel, led him out into the fields and killed him. That was a strained relationship. You move on in the stories and you have Noah barely getting off the ark before he and a relationship with a son becomes strained. You think about Jacob and Esau and the division that happened with the set of brothers. Or Noah and Aaron as they tried to lead the people out of Egypt into the promised land. And then when you hop over into the New Testament, it's hard to believe that there wasn't a strained relationship when Mary came to Joseph and said she was pregnant. But they had not yet been together as husband and wife. And then Jesus had strained relationships with his disciples at times. They didn't understand Jesus. He was hurt by the things they did. And sometimes the things that Jesus said, they didn't understand. And then even in the new church, as they tried to figure out how to get along in these new relationships as Jews and Gentiles and fellow believers, well, at times there was injury and relationships were hurt. It's impossible to live in this world and in our own sinfulness and not find that our relationships become strained at times. It's inevitable because of our sinfulness. It's going to happen. And there's going to be hurt and there's going to be pain. Now, hopefully we don't seek out to bring pain into a situation or into a relationship, but sometimes it just happens. And there's a strain between two individuals. Well, where do we go from there? How do we deal when that relationship becomes broken? Well, God has demonstrated that he is about fixing broken relationships. That's why God sent Jesus into the world, because our relationship with God had become strained, broken. We were separated from God because of our sin, and the only way God realized that it could be made whole was for Jesus to come, to join us, to be a part of us, and ultimately give his life for us and bring healing to those relationships. But the healing didn't stop there with Jesus, because God also desires that our relationships with one another be healed and restored. That the grace that God gives to us to heal the relationship with himself is the same grace that God expects us to share with one another. And this is the grace that is able to heal our wounds and to allow relationships that have been strained to begin to be made whole. It's not always an instantaneous thing that occurs. And often it takes time for that relationship to be healed. But God's desire is that for all of us to live in unity and harmony with one another. That was God's intention in the very beginning, before sin caused such a strain in our world and our lives. And so the challenge for us now as a people of faith is to take up that challenge to seek to restore the relationships that are broken in our lives. And if not broken, strained, hurting, and need our attention and need our care. We don't have to do it on our own, but God gives us the grace and the guidance to bring healing to our relationships. It's important to God. In fact, Jesus would tell us in the Gospels that if you're in church and you're there to worship, but you suddenly realize there's a strain in relationship with another person, leave worship. Go find the person and try to make it right. You see, God is about healing relationships. He has from the very beginning. And now he's asked us to go and do the same. To seek to heal the brokenness of a world where people are divided on so many places and in so many ways, and to help God restore the goodness and love and unity that he first put in place. Bless each of you.